Hi everyone, just wanted to take a few minutes to discuss some of our topics from last week. Last week we talked a little bit about um, some of the epidemiological study types, which are, and I'm scrolling here for a second, obviously, just want to make sure that's all we talked about last week. We talked about epidemiological study types. We talked a little bit about what we did the essay on how your views on population health may have changed. But most of the week was focused on the different study types. Case control, clinical trials, um, cohort studies, and really the main reason I want to talk about this, managerial epidemiology is one of the focuses in this class, but also, unfortunately, our program does not have a research focused class. So I want to take just a few minutes to talk about research, and not specifically clinical research, but research in general. And research is a huge element, not just of clinical settings, because obviously clinical research, clinical trials, those types of things are very important to the progress of medicine. If it wasn't for clinical research, we wouldn't see progress in medicine. And for those of you that are here in the Pittsburgh region, obviously almost every, obviously UPMC, AHN both do some clinical, obviously UPMC does a massive amount of clinical research. I think AHN has some clinical research ongoing in its facilities as well. And I know Excella Health does some research in their facilities. I think every organization does clinical research at some level here in the Pittsburgh region. However, it's not limited to clinical research. Research is done. For example, here, at RMU, we're doing tons of research. Any organization, any educational organization is doing research. It's a requirement of being a faculty member. We have to do. It's one of our. There's a three-pronged approach to being faculty. You have to teach. You have to provide service to the university through committee work, and you have to do research. So no matter what educational institution exists, they're doing some sort of research. And the type of research that I was specifically interested in the discussion board, and there were some really great examples, a lot of them, was the type of research that helps to promote operational efficiencies, better operations, making hospitals and healthcare systems and physician practices and whatnot better. And there's so much out there that can really do that. However, on the flip side, I also wanted to just help to further that understanding of the research process, the notion of these types of studies and how structured they are, and that this that these to do a research study is a very it's a very stringent and structured format, and you kind of have to follow these very structured elements in order to complete various studies. Now, those are obviously just a few different types of studies. I am a qualitative researcher. I don't follow any of those types of studies. Those tend to be very quantitative studies. I'm a qualitative researcher. I like to do ethnographies, phenomenologies. So I am a completely different type of researcher than that. But all researchers are different types of researchers. But there's all different types of research out there. And like I said, unfortunately, in our graduate program, because it is a professional graduate program, not a research-based one, we don't focus a lot on research. But I think it's really important to have some basis in research when you're in a graduate program moving forward. At least talk a little bit about it. Okay, I've actually recorded this once before and noticed that on the side of the screen was something really obnoxious. So if you do choose to go out and take a look at this article, be aware that you may find something offensive on the side of the screen. If you are are of one that is easily offended. But so in our discussions in the discussion board this week, we did have some discussion about how sometimes research is bad. Sometimes there are bad elements to research. Sometimes there are there are issues, there are problems with research, and data is shoddy, data is problematic. And so I found this article. This is an old article, but I just happened upon it this week. It happened to come up in this. It's actually, interestingly enough, it's a newsletter I get about New York City food every week. But this article happened to pop up in there. And it's about, as you all know, I live in upstate New York, and this is about the Food and Brand Lab at Cornell University. And Cornell has this Food and Brand Laboratory, which really is one of the leading laboratories of food research, brand research. I actually have had the opportunity many times to be involved in research studies of theirs. My son used to play, when he was in high school, he played on a hockey team that practiced right on the campus at Cornell. And so we were there 4 times a week. And there's a restaurant just down from the campus that they did a lot of research in. So we had the opportunity to be research subjects of theirs quite often. And they really do a lot of work on how what people eat, how people eat, what they're interested in, etc. And so what this particular article was, this is a popular article. This is not a scholarly journal article, but it's an interesting article nonetheless. But this particular article is about how the Food and Brand Laboratory, and I'll give you quite a lengthy article, and if you're interested, it does give, kind of all of the details in painstaking detail. But generally, what this is about is that they did a study, got some data, and one of the paid graduate assistants, probably a PhD student, had looked at this data set and found that it was a null hypothesis. It did not meet the requirements. There was no data there. I mean, there was data, but it didn't meet what they were looking to find. So there was nothing. There were no findings. And so Brian Wansink, who's the head of the lab, the director of the lab, he had an unpaid graduate assistant that came to the lab, and this person, he gave this data set to this person, and this person was able to publish 5 papers over a 6-month period, shortly after this first person looked at it, out of this data, this same data that the paid PhD student graduate assistant was unable to find anything. And as they've noted, there are many errors in the data. It was very shoddy research, just a poor overall effort. And so is this representative of the data that's coming out of that laboratory overall? And it was about pizza. That's why there's a big pizza here. It was a pizza restaurant, some type of all-you-can-eat Italian restaurant study. So just to give you that idea of, people are just, in some instances, just cranking out these studies to avoid that publish or perish mentality that does exist in academia. There is this this notion that we have to publish or we'll perish. So it's just simply a requirement in academia that we crank out these research studies. So just interesting. It is available out at New York Magazine. And there, even if you just do I saw Forbes had an article. I just happen to like this article because it does go into painstaking detail about all of the issues that occurred. So Really interesting topic, and there's a lot of data out there about it. So, any questions about research, about how research impacts operations in hospital setting, or even just research in general? I spent, when I worked in compliance, I had my own consulting stuff. I did a lot of research compliance. Research is something I'm pretty passionate about. So, please feel free to contact me. I'm happy to discuss research or get into, the helping to explain any of this any further. So, any questions, please let me know. And I look forward to working with everyone in the discussion boards this week. Okay, thanks so much.